Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Read Insight. I am your host, Charlotte. It is a pleasure to have you here with me today. Perhaps you are listening to this on a Monday morning commute, watching the city wake up through a train window, or maybe it is a quiet evening and you are finally winding down after a long day of demands and deadlines. I want to invite you to take a brief moment to reflect on your own life. Think back to the start of this year, or perhaps the start of last month. Did you have a list? A mental or physical list of things you wanted to change? Maybe it was, I want to get in shape, I want to write that novel, or I want to learn a new language. We all have these aspirations, these glowing visions of a better version of ourselves. But how often do those visions fade into the background of our busy lives, leaving us feeling not just stagnant, but perhaps a little guilty? We often blame our lack of willpower or motivation, telling ourselves we just aren't disciplined enough. But what if I told you that the problem isn't you? What if the problem is simply the way you've been taught to approach change? Today, we are going to explore a book that has fundamentally shifted the way millions of people understand their own behavior. It is called Atomic Habits, written by James Clear. This is not just a manual on productivity, it is a profound philosophical inquiry into how we build our lives, one tiny action at a time. To truly understand the power of this book, we need to travel back in time a little bit to the world of British professional cycling in the early 2000s. For nearly 100 years, British cycling had been, to put it politely, entirely unremarkable. They had won just a single gold medal at the Olympic Games since 1908, and they had fared even worse in cycling's biggest race, the Tour de France. In fact, their reputation was so poor that one top bike manufacturer refused to sell them equipment because they feared it would hurt their brand image if other professionals saw the British team using their gear. That all changed one day in 2003, when the organization hired a man named Dave Brailsford as their new performance director. Brailsford was different. He didn't focus on drastic overhauls or finding a superhuman athlete. Instead, he believed in a concept he called the aggregation of marginal gains. The philosophy was simple yet revolutionary. Brailsford believed that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improved it by just 1%, you would get a significant increase when you put them all together. So they started with the obvious things like redesigning the bike seats to make them more comfortable and rubbing alcohol on the tires for better grip. But then they went further. They tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chances of catching a cold. They even determined which type of pillow and mattress led to the best night's sleep for each individual rider. It sounds almost obsessive, doesn't it? Perhaps even trivial. But the results were undeniable. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, the British cycling team dominated the road and track cycling events at the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, winning an astounding 60% of the gold medals available. 4 years later, in London, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. This story serves as the perfect metaphor for James Clear's central thesis. Huge, life-changing results are not the product of massive overnight action, but rather the compound interest of tiny, almost invisible habits. This brings us to a crucial realization about how we live our own lives. We live in a world that celebrates the big break, the overnight success, the dramatic transformation. We think that if we want to change our lives, we need to make some massive, earth-shattering decision. But Clear argues that the difference between who you are and who you want to be is simply the accumulation of your daily habits. He uses a mathematical analogy that I find incredibly sobering yet empowering. If you can get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you'll decline nearly down to zero. It is the concept of compound interest applied to self-improvement. But here is the catch, and this is where most of us stumble. We focus too much on goals and not enough on systems. Think about it. Every athlete at the Olympics has the goal of winning a gold medal. Every candidate interviewing for a job wants to get hired. If the winners and the losers share the same goals, then the goal cannot be what differentiates them. The goal is the result you want to achieve. The system is the process that leads to those results. As Clear beautifully puts it, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Now, let's go deeper. Beyond the mathematics and the systems, there is a profound psychological shift that needs to happen, something that touches on the very core of our existence, our identity. This, for me, is the most moving part of the book. True behavior change is identity change. You might have two people who are trying to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." It sounds like a reasonable response. But it implies that they still see themselves as a smoker who is attempting to do something else. Now imagine the second person refuses by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." It's a small difference in wording, but a massive difference in mindset. The second person has shifted their identity. They no longer identify with someone who smokes. The most effective way to change your habits is not to focus on what you want to achieve, but on who you want to become. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to be. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. You aren't just reading a book, you are becoming a reader. You aren't just going for a run, you are becoming a runner. This perspective shifts the burden from willpower to being. You don't need to force yourself to do something that contradicts your nature. You simply act in accordance with who you believe you are. So, how do we actually implement this? How do we design a life where these good habits flourish? James Clear offers us the 4 laws of behavior change, and I would like to highlight the ones I find most practical for our modern, distracted lives. The first is to make it obvious. This is about environment design. Many of us think we lack motivation when what we really lack is clarity. If you want to practice guitar, don't keep it hidden in a closet. Put it on a stand in the middle of your living room. If you want to drink more water, fill up bottles and place them around your house. Be the architect of your environment, not the victim of it. Conversely, if you want to break a bad habit, make it invisible. If you can't stop checking your phone, put it in another room. We are creatures of our surroundings, and often, visual cues are the strongest drivers of our behavior. Another incredibly powerful tool is the 2-minute rule. This is designed to stop procrastination in its tracks. The rule states that when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for class becomes open my notes. You might be thinking, "Charlotte, what is the point of reading just 1 page? That won't get me anywhere." But the point isn't the output. The point is the ritual. You have to master the art of showing up. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You cannot optimize a habit that doesn't exist. By making the hurdle so low that you cannot say no, you are reinforcing that identity we talked about earlier. You are proving to yourself that you are the kind of person who shows up, even if it's just for 2 minutes. Once you are there, it is much easier to keep going. However, even with these strategies, there will be times when we feel like giving up. We work hard, we eat right, we practice our craft, and yet we look in the mirror or check our bank account and see nothing, no change. This is what James Clear calls the Plateau of Latent Potential, or more poetically, the Valley of Disappointment. I want you to visualize an ice cube sitting on a table in a freezing room. The room is 25 degrees. Slowly, the room begins to warm up. 26, 27, 28. The ice cube is still sitting there, unchanged. 29, 30, 31. Still nothing. Then, 32 degrees. The ice begins to melt. A 1-degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature increases before it, has unlocked a huge change. When you are working on a goal and seeing no results, you are not wasting your time. You are simply storing up energy. You are in that phase between 25 and 31 degrees. Your work is not wasted. It is just being stored. Breaking through that plateau is what people call an overnight success, but the outside world only sees the dramatic event. Not all the work that happened when the temperature was rising, but the ice hadn't melted yet. Reading Atomic Habits feels less like reading a self-help book and more like having a conversation with a wise friend who understands the human condition. It reminds us to be patient with ourselves. It teaches us the concept of never miss twice. Life happens. You will miss a workout. You will eat an unhealthy meal. That is okay. The first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. So, if you fall off the wagon, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on immediately. This approach replaces guilt with strategy and perfectionism with consistency. As we come to the end of our journey today, I want to leave you with a thought. We often look at successful people, or people who seem to have their lives together, and we think they possess some magical quality that we lack. We think they have infinite discipline, or are just naturally gifted. But the truth is much more grounding. They are simply people who have built better systems. They are people who have decided to trust the process of small, incremental improvements. They understand that time will magnify whatever you feed it. If you feed it good habits, time becomes your ally. If you feed it bad habits, time becomes your enemy. So, here is my question for you, and I would love for you to carry this with you into your week. If you could pick just one tiny 2-minute habit to start today, something so small it seems almost ridiculous, what would it be? Would it be doing one push-up, writing one sentence in a journal, flossing one tooth? Remember, you are not just ticking a box. You are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Let the compound interest of your life begin today. I'm Charlotte, and this has been Read Insight. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep turning the page.